Alright guys, so in this video we have a unique opportunity. We are taking some of the most rare German piston-driven AR-15s, stacking them up side by side and taking them out to the range and seeing how they do. And then once we do that, we're going to actually take them and stack them up against some American manufactured piston-driven AR-15s. How do they compare? Do the Germans really do it better? Are hamburgers really sandwiches? We find out all of that in today's episode, so stay tuned and comment down below who you think is going to win. HK? Haenel? HK? American?
I'll be up in the club and it's so alright. I'll be fucked up by the night, pouring it up and dance to the vibe. I know if I miss the light, I'll be up in the club and it's all alright. I'll be fucked up by the night, pouring it up and dance to the vibe. I know if I miss the light.
I know most of you watching this video are not subscribed to the channel, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button and also turn on the notification bell. We have videos coming at you Sundays at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, unless Tanner decides to be a little bit. And let's be real, YouTube hates gun content, so let them know that you want to see more of this content, so hit that notification bell and help us get to 200,000 subscribers. We are so close, and I could really use your help. We are going head to head with an original HK416D, the modern HK MR556A4, and German's ultra-rare, controversial Haenel CR223. First, a little history on these rifles, starting with a gun that started it all, the HK416D. The HK416D, developed by Heckler & Koch in the early 2000s, is a 5.56 by 45mm NATO rifle that uses a short-stroke gas piston system, offering greater reliability and reducing fouling compared to the traditional AR-15 M4 direct impingement design. First adopted by US Delta Force, it gained legendary status for its performance in harsh conditions and high-profile missions like the Bin Laden raid.
My poker face.
Officially introduced in 2004, it has been in service for over 2 decades and is now used by elite military and police units worldwide, including in Germany, France, Norway, the US, and several others. Its reputation for accuracy, durability, and combat effectiveness has made it the go-to rifle for top-tier forces around the globe. If you are out on the range often, you know how important it is to keep a steady supply of ammo on hand and not rely on last-minute restocks or inconsistent availability. Yes, I might be talking about myself, but that's okay. That's where Ammo Squared comes in. They are America's ammunition reserve. You pick from over 70 different calibers, set your monthly budget, and let it build up over time. When you're ready, you ship it. Simple as that. They store everything in climate-controlled facilities so your ammo stays in good shape until you need it. No hidden fees, no minimums, and shipping's free on orders over $250. I found it's a solid way to keep training ammo stocked without having to think about it. And it's also great if you have a small budget or just want to build a stockpile without spending hundreds or thousands of dollars up front. And it's a good way to stay ready without scrambling last minute. So, Ammo Squared. Now, this brings us to the modern version of the civilian 416, the MR556A4. To avoid this getting really annoying, I'm going to refer the MR556A4 as the A4. Cool? Cool. In short, the A4 takes the original design of the 416 and improves it by creating a slimmer, lighter, and more feature-packed rifle. The HK416D on average weighs about 8.7 pounds dry, while the A4 weighs in at about 6.6 pounds dry. So about 2 pounds has been removed on the modern version. It boasts a slimmer rail, ambidextrous controls, improved buffer spring, removes the integrated sights, adds an adjustable gas block, replaces the quad Picatinny rail with an M-lock rail, adds more QD mounts for slings, and notably, the A4 has extrusions on the receiver to protect the controls of the gun on both sides. The A4 is a worthy upgrade to the original 416, and while the civilian version doesn't have a chrome-lined barrel, it is still sub-MOA capable and extremely reliable. Now, onto the gun that challenged HK for the German main service rifle contract. Although you likely haven't heard of Haenel, They are not a new company. However, I can't imagine they want you to know about their past. Haenel is most infamously known for their contribution to military firearms in 1931 in Germany. Yep. Haenel is responsible for many firearm designs at the time, but the most interesting is the STG-44. They can be considered the grandfather of all assault rifles. Many war crimes and questionable paperclip operations later, Haenel is now competing to be the backbone of small arms for the German military, which is returning them to their former glory again. This brings us to the modern day Haenel, which introduced their MK556 or CR223 in 2017. The CR223 is a short stroke gas piston AR15. Where have we heard that?
416D, developed by Heckler & Koch, that uses a short stroke gas piston system.
The list of similarities is far longer than the list of differences, so let's talk about what the Haenel does that the HK does not. Starting with the gas block, the Haenel comes with a self-regulating gas block, quick detach rail, quick detach rail, and unique replaceable inlay parts in places that see a high amount of wear. This is potentially key for the German military as they were looking to extend service life of the rifles for decades. These unique inlay parts means that you do not have to replace the whole receiver when certain areas wear out. Most visibly notable is the little piece where the charging handle locks in on the upper receiver. On the Haenel, you'll see a removable part that can be swapped out once this part wears out. You'll typically only see wear in these areas after decades of use and in the military after they were passed down from soldier to soldier. So for the civilian market, it really isn't a huge extra added bonus. In 2020, Haenel officially competed against HK to become the standard assault rifle for the German Bundeswehr. Oh, that was pretty good! While both rifles were very similar and HK was the preferred company for the German government, having serviced the G36 for some time, the Haenel had one more trick up its sleeve. It was the cheaper rifle of the two, at least for the German military. More on that later. Haenel was awarded the contract to replace the G36 and dethrone HK as the go-to firearms manufacturer for Germany. Wait, do you smell that? It smells like a cease and desist freshly out of HK's lawyer's office. Funny enough, apparently some HK engineers had left the company a few years before that and went to work for alternative firearms manufacturers. I speculate, keyword speculate, some of those engineers found a new home at Haenel and took their HK ideas with them.
You're sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?
You see, the Haenel gun initially won the contract in 2020 for being so close to the HK416, yet just slightly underbidding them. The HK, however, was very suspicious of Haenel's design choices, rightfully so. It turns out Haenel had infringed on some of HK's patents, most notably the buffer tube drainage holes, which were iconically HK. While that alone shouldn't cause them to lose the contract, it raised suspicion in the German government, and if you know Germans, you know they love rules. You must obey the law! It's likely that a few patent infringements couldn't be forgiven by bureaucrats. So the contract was awarded back to HK to replace the G36 with the new HK416A8. Here's the kicker. While Haenel was the cheaper option for Germany, here in the States, the Haenel will run you anywhere from $8,500 to $12,000. Yeah, that MR556A4 ain't looking so bad after all. So with all this context, let's go to the range and put those guns back to back to back. We'll definitely test which German AR-15 is truly the best. What's up, guys? We are here with Emerson from Gallinson Guns, and we have three guns. We've got three German guns competing for one military contract. First off, we have an original HK416. Next one, we have a Haenel CR223. Now this is a civilian version of the MK556. This actually beats out the HK416 and the 433, which we don't have here. And then lastly, we have the modern version of the 416, which is the HK MR556A4. So let's go ahead and put them head to head to head and see which one does best. All right, we're gonna be going down the line, shooting 5 shots in each gun, starting with the HK416D. Sorry, I was way off at first.
Pretty cool.
Forget it's not
I feel like
ambi.
concussion from here too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to finally freaking be able to shoot one of these dang things. So. Cool. What's next?
All right. Next up, the Haenel. I probably saying that wrong, but oh well. There we go. Okay. Wow, didn't make any of those. That recoil was a lot less, but that could also be because of the suppressor. But it's pretty smooth. It felt really smooth. Oh, can't do that. Ready?
Yep. Nice, thanks. Yeah, it felt different. I don't know if it was because I don't know how different the piston system is between the Haenel and the 416, but it felt a lot faster.
All right, now we got the MR556A4. All right.
Like it's undergassed from the get-go. It seemed that was designed that way on purpose to run with the silencer, obviously to make it a little bit softer shooting and run even cleaner, even though they're all piston-driven guns. Like a SCAR, I felt the piston come back and cycle like the gas was slower to come back, if that makes any sense. Like not as much gas was coming back towards to cycle the gun. I didn't think there would be that much of a difference between each of these guns, but silencers aside, I think it's pretty cool how different they all feel. Like as similar they are technically, they obviously have their own personalities.
Especially the Haenel, it's probably the most similar than any other gun to these, I'd say.
Sure.
They're very similar.
Yeah.
But it still felt very different.
HK's piston-driven guns, they come with a much heavier spring and buffer, so they naturally are a little bit softer shooting. That may be part of the reason why that felt smoother. There's not as much weight coming back toward your shoulder. I'm sure that played a role into it as well. But I think the 77 grain ammo played a pretty big role in it, to be honest. They're all totally different, which is pretty dang cool.
Yeah.
This is
All right, so we just got done shooting these 3 guns here. We didn't get a lot of rounds for them, but we got enough to kind of get a feel for them. Starting with the 416, it almost felt kind of slow and maybe a little undergassed. Still a great gun, still solid to shoot, but maybe not as smooth as the other guns here that we have. The Haenel was, in my opinion, probably the smoothest, and the bolt just felt the fastest. And that could be for a couple different reasons. I mean, this HK is brand new, like first time shooting it, and this has been shot multiple times, so that could be a factor. Okay, and then also the MR556 smooth shooter felt a little bit heavier than the Haenel, but still great gun. Smooth. We shot it on suppressed, and the unsuppressed version, or not version, but the changed the adjustable gas block. You can definitely tell a difference in that. Comparing that to the 416, the 416 is like your old reliable like Toyota. And then Emerson, kind of what are your thoughts? Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. The Haenel and the MR556 felt more like brothers than they did anything else. They felt more similar than I thought they would otherwise. This obviously has many more rounds through it, and that could partially be the reason why it was as soft shooting as it was. But the 416, it definitely felt chunkier, but it felt like it would work no matter the conditions that you threw it in. Like you said, like an old pickup, it's not the most comfortable ride, but it will stand the test of times. But I was very surprised about the differences between how each of them felt, especially between those two, to be honest. So
Yeah, I was expecting them to be more similar because I have heard just how similar they all are, but they definitely had, like, they felt so different. And yeah, we are kind of nitpicking, but they did feel different.
The lower receivers alone and controls felt entirely different between each other. This is the most traditional style, obviously. It's non-ambidextrous, just your basic mil-spec parts. We both had gripes about Haenel's lower receiver. Controls were kind of finicky. They're, I don't want to say oddly placed, but they felt very different to everything that I've shot, at least. Especially the safety selector, the ambidextrous mag release. It's something that I'm not that big of a fan of compared to the modernized MR556. Can't really hate the old style controls like on the 416 compared to the other two. The Haenel felt the least comfortable, I guess, is a better way to put it. I don't know.
Yeah. I'd say it's more, I don't know, just harder in a way. The bolt release, like, it's nice that it's ambidextrous, but on the right side, that is so stiff. Like, it took me a while to, and like enough, like a lot of pressure to be able to release that. And then, yeah, the safety selector was also pretty stiff as well. So
yeah, in the bolt release, you really had to stick your finger far, far up there.
That's what she said.
To hit that in the first place. I don't know if that was on purpose. It seemed like it'd catch on something eventually. It sticks above just about everything else except the brass deflector. It's a pretty cool concept that I think could grow on to a lot of people, but I'm not the biggest fan of the ambidextrous controls on the Haenel, at least.
MR556 definitely, as far as like controls, is probably the winner here.
On this bolt release, what did kind of worry me, there was no shield around it compared to like the MR556 or Knights or even LMT. Those are shielded off, both the ambidextrous mag release and the bolt release. So I'm not a super big fan of that. I do think it's kind of interesting, but...
Sorry to cut you off, but it is pretty stiff. So I guess in order to make up for not having some sort of shield, you really have to be intentional when you're pressing that. So, you know, pros and cons, I guess.
Another thing, I don't know if your hands touched it or not, but the trigger pins that hold your trigger in place, those protrude quite a bit compared to most other lower receivers. I felt those get in the way a little bit because I would touch that and think it'd throw me off. Oh wait, that's not my mag release, it's actually up here, or vice versa. That's just to be super, super picky, but that was something that I noticed, at least the quick little drill that we did with more movement involved, something that bothered me. But
so in order to use this ambi bolt catch, you have to actually like drive your finger in between the bolt catch and the receiver and then kind of push it up. So like I said, it's kind of driving like your finger in there like a wedge. So, I mean, I don't know if I'd get used to it. It is kind of weird at first.
I would get a little worried. Neither one of us were shooting with gloves today, but if you're out in the winter and you had thicker gloves on, if you shove your finger in there to release the bolt, I would get worried about getting my glove caught in that, trying to send the bolt back forward.
Yeah,
again, that's being super picky, but I'm sure somebody at some point has munched their finger on that, but definitely one of the major differences between the controls between all three of them.
Yeah.
Control-wise, I think MR556 might be my favorite. Not to say that the 416 is boring by any means. It is the most standard controls that you could have on any AR-15. So the ambidextrous, obviously, I like on the A4, but...
Yeah, ambi's kind of standard these days. So now that we have a feel of these three guns here, let's take it a step further and let's look at some American-made Piston AR-15s. So first off, right off the bat, I actually think that Emerson's HK with the Knights lower felt, I'd say, the most similar to the Haenel. Would you agree, or do you feel different?
Yeah, some of it maybe is the silencer. I was pretty surprised how different mine felt from your MR556 A4, because they're the exact same upper, just different silencer and different lower.
Yeah.
That was pretty interesting to me. I wonder if the silencer plays a role into that, how much gas is coming back and how quickly the action is moving. But that was the first thing that I noticed that surprised me, I guess, the most out the gate.
Mine probably felt, the recoil wasn't more, but it was kind of harder in a way.
Yeah, it felt almost punchier.
Yeah.
That was the most interesting thing to me right off the gate. A surprise, obviously we've shot this a little bit tonight. The Haenel, again, is just as smooth as it was. Still finicky about the controls and what I think about it overall. This obviously wants to kick a little bit. It wants to buck.
Yeah.
It felt sturdy and durable and overall manageable. Even though it is shorter, it's a lighter weight quad rail with no silencer compared to the rest of these. I was a little impressed about some of the other silencers, how well they did. I noticed on the BRN upper especially, I felt the heat from the gas block even after the first round. I didn't think it would heat up that quickly, but
yeah.
If I am mag dumping like crazy, that would get very, very hot.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't feel the heat signature off of any of the other handguards like I did on the BRN. Obviously the Mark 116 did not have a silencer on it. Even though that is a traditional style brake, I thought that would have mitigated the recoil a little bit more. I'm a little biased, obviously, but I think mine felt the softest. I think that's partially because of the Knight's Armament silencer.
Yeah.
To be super picky, I'm not as big of a fan of the long stroke piston, just the overall feel of it. Some of that probably was because it had a muzzle brake instead of a silencer compared to most of the rest of the guns we have here.
Yeah.
But the recoil impulse did feel much different than the rest of the guns that we have.
I agree, and I couldn't tell at first if it was because it didn't have a suppressor on it, but that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
So overall, I'd say the American piston systems probably have more of a recoil in general. I felt overall the German systems had probably a smoother shooting.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Definitely. And I don't think it's us trying to justify the cost of German piston guns.
Yeah.
But it's pretty easily noticeable. I guess how refined, especially the HK recoil systems are compared to the American piston-driven guns. Obviously, lawn stroke involved, that feels different as well. But the American-made piston guns did not feel as refined nor smooth. Obviously, a few other factors probably play a factor in that as well, like some of the weight on the end of the gun based off the silencers that we've been using. Just off of recoil management, the German-made guns definitely felt a lot better, noticeably better.
Okay, so now that we've tested the guns, I've had some time to really think about my experiences. I feel confident enough to give my summarized opinions on each platform. Starting with the HK416. It was a solid rifle and I do feel like it could handle anything I could throw at it, but the controls felt outdated. For example, the charging handle was small and smooth, which was hard to use and my hands would often slip off of it. In most modern rifles nowadays, you often see grooves on the charging handle and you can use it from either the left or the right side, whereas the 416, I really had to get both fingers on the charging handle in order to get good leverage to be able to pull that back. Another example was that the safety selector was not ambidextrous. As far as gas, it was a little bit maybe undergassed. It doesn't have an adjustable gas block, which I think contributed to it. We did run it without a suppressor, which can definitely affect that, but it seemed reliable, just maybe not as fine-tuned as some of the modern rifles. As far as looks, if guns were cars, this would be the Porsche air-cooled 911. Even though it is outperformed by modern rifles, it does have that timeless look and feel. Now the MR556A4. As far as ergonomics go, this is by far my favorite. It just felt like I was right at home. The controls are easy to use, tactile, smooth, and they do have fencing around them so that nothing is going to accidentally set them off. Now, one gripe I do have about this gun is the bolt catch on the right side. The little fencing that blocks you from accidentally hitting that, it's almost the same size as the bolt catch, and so there's not a lot of leverage that you get to be able to move that up if you need it. As far as the gas and the recoil, it was very smooth. However, it is a brand new gun, and I think that contributed to it not being maybe as smooth as the Haenel, but it does have an adjustable gas block, which does make a difference. The way I like to describe the recoil of the A4 is that it is a sharp and crisp punch versus a slow and smooth push, which I saw in the Haenel. Now, moving on to the looks of the A4, honestly, like, this is my baby, so I probably have some bias against it, but it looks amazing, especially, I mean, all the things I added on here, right? I mean, when you're borrowing looks from something as iconic as the 416, you can only get better, right? I find myself looking at this gun more than any of the other guns I have, and I just gravitate towards it. From the unique tall rail to the sleek and crisp markings from HK, it's honestly like the perfect example of an AR-15. Now, moving on to the Haenel CR223. As far as the ergonomics, it did feel good in my hands, however, the controls were not user-friendly. the bolt catch on the right side of the gun was very stiff and you had to use a lot of pressure in order to disengage that. Also, the safety selector on the right side sticks out like 50% more than the other guns, so it kind of gets in your way and you can feel that on the inside knuckle of your shooting hand. The safety selector was also hard to engage as well. It just felt stiff and like I didn't have enough leverage on it. Another interesting thing is that the trigger pin also sticks out quite a bit, and when you're running and gunning, it can get mistaken for the mag release at times. Overall, the Haenel had a lot of features, but it just didn't feel as smooth and refined as the MR556A4. Now moving on to the gas and the recoil of the Haenel, it was probably the smoothest shooter that I shot that day. The gas block is a self-regulating gas block, so it is not adjustable, but I feel like that gun had enough rounds in it that the gas block was actually doing its job and regulated very well. The bolt on the Haenel felt the smoothest to cycle. However, I do prefer the recoil impulse of the A4 compared to the Haenel because it just felt crisper. Now, in conclusion, the biggest takeaway I took from this experience is how different the German piston-driven AR-15s were compared to the American manufactured ones. They're both solid options, and I don't think you could go wrong with any of the German guns, but when comparing them to the American counterparts, they just felt like a more refined design. However, a lot of these American manufacturers are selling their rifles for like $2,000, so you're saving quite a bit of money, and I don't think you could go wrong with any of those. But it's interesting to see the differences between the two, and also the differences in the philosophy of manufacturing. And out of all the American rifles that I shot, I'd probably say the VKTR was my favorite one. However, I do need some more time on them, and we'll see how they stack up over time. Side note, we are coming out with individual videos on each of the rifles that we tested in this video, so make sure you are subscribed and turn on that notification bell. Thanks for watching this video. It took a lot of effort to get this out, and huge thanks to Gallinsons for providing a few of the guns that we shot here today. So go check out Gallinsons, go follow them. They also have a video out on these guns as well. We will put that in the description down below. But thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all the things, and we'll catch you in the next episode.